Here we go. Weekly Scrap. I think we're live. Yes. Weekly Scrap, number 35, special guest Mike and Anne Gagliano. And I really had to double check how to pronounce the name to make sure I did not mispronounce. I'm sure you guys are used to that.
We are.
We are.
So you just roll with it, probably all the
roll.
butcherings of the name pronunciation. You guys authored the book, The Challenges of the Firefighter Marriage. And I'm just going to show it on here. This book is extremely, I don't know if you guys can see it there in the lighting. It is dense. That's the word I would put on it. And I mean that in the highest compliment of there is so much information packed in this book. You're not going to read it in a weekend, and you're going to want to reread it. How much research did you guys put into making this book, and how long did it take to write?
30 years.
Plus.
35 years. Boy, it really started with an article that I wrote for Fire Engineering Magazine about 10 years ago, something like that, 11 years ago. And that was triggered by a simple question that Mike asked me from coming home from the training center day after day, telling me that a bunch of his fellow firefighters were getting divorced. And that's what kind of sparked a question. And he was devastated by that. And he just asked me if I had any ideas of why firefighters might be kind of hard to live with. And I said, yeah.
Yeah, a few clues.
That's what kind of sparked it. Then he was surprised by my answers. I wrote it all down. And I wrote for he was surprised by it. We submitted it to Fire Engineering. Bobby was very brave and allowed us to put it in the technical magazine. And the response was huge. We went from there to writing a column. I started writing a column for Fire Engineering. It's an online column. And I wrote that for about 10 years. And that's what led to the book.
Okay.
The column, week after week, each column kind of stemmed from the original article. The columns just started to kind of fill themselves out. And that's what led to the book. So
Wow.
it was a 10-year process. I didn't just sit down and say, I'm going to write a book.
Sure.
It took a while. And then each of the columns, like I said, kind of led to chapters. And then when you're writing a book, you have to somehow narrow it down. You can't just throw in 10 years worth of columns. And the class developed along the way too. When you start talking to others, it's just kind of all comes together. And that's how it all gelled. It was very organic.
Okay.
The book took, probably 3 years in the making. So yeah, it's quite the process. A lot of research. All the columns were very well researched. I wrote 2 columns a month. And so it took me a month to write 2 columns with the research involved.
Right.
So it very well researched along the way, but it takes a long time to do that. So that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the pruning process probably too. You had all the material from the columns, and then you got to pick out, like you said, and melt it down into what can actually belong, and put it all in those orders.
Yeah.
So that leads right into my next question to you guys: is writing as a husband and wife team. What was the process like? Did you have a system? Was there a lead, or go ahead and explain your guys' writing process if there was one.
Want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. So, from the get-go, this has primarily been Anne's project. It started with her insights of us being able to navigate being fully committed to the fire service and digging it, loving it, and,
Right.
Giving the mission what it deserves, and to be honest, giving honest work for honest pay. That's how we made our living. And so, you want to do a good job for the people who are the citizens who are using their own tax money. You want to do a good job. In conjunction with being firmly committed to a robust, loving, caring, supportive home life, and not losing our home life because of what we're doing professionally, whatever that is.
Right.
And so Anne was reacting to that, and what she wrote down, I felt like it was eye-opening for me. As I started sharing it with some of my friends in Seattle Fire, it seemed to resonate, and that's what brought the article about. So we took that same approach when we went into writing process of the book. She had the lead. She wrote about the first 2/3 of the chapter, and I would help her with that a little bit. Again, the majority of it was her, and then I would come back after having read what she wrote, and I would respond from the firefighter's perspective. And I would either fill in the gaps that I felt like were not part of what she had done, or I would just give the firefighter perspective coming back to the spouse, or in many instances, interestingly enough, being much more direct with the firefighters.
Right. No,
saying like, we got a tough job. Yeah, we see some tough stuff. But if you're being a jerk, expect things not to go well at home. Expect your kids not to like you. Expect people not to want to be around you. So those types of things, I think, is kind of what I brought to it.
No, and it comes across well in the book. So it's
we're glad. You always hope it does.
It does. And I liked
hoping back and forth would. We were hoping that would translate well, and it's everything that we wrote about was reciprocal. It wasn't just spouses. Here's what you have to do for your hero firefighter.
Right.
It was about, here's what your firefighter's dealing with, acknowledge that. But now, firefighter, here's what your spouse is seeing when they come home. And here's their perspective on it. Your goal was to be awesome together. Here's some thoughts on how we did it. And now whatever works for you, do that.
Right.
And what doesn't work, throw that in the trash bin and then come up with things that will work for you. That was the goal of it.
No, the teamwork aspect too is so huge in there, and I love that about it. It starts with part 1. Oh wait, I want to ask you guys: do you have a favorite part of the book that either that you just enjoyed researching and writing because it resonated with you guys so much? And then I'll follow it up with the presentation question. But go ahead.
Boy, favorite part.
Well, I know what mine is. You can think about it.
Okay. Yeah, you go first.
Well, let me tell you my favorite. Let me do just a quick 2-part.
Okay.
Let me hit you with the part that will surprise me. I am glad that we stuck to our guns and persisted in the face of some pretty strong pushback on ensuring that pornography stayed in that book. And I can tell you there was a lot of pushback against it because apparently there are a lot of varying opinions on pornography and whether or not it's good or bad. All we can do is write what we think and write what we've seen, both in what I've seen in 33 years in the fire service and what we read nationally is going on and the victimization that's happening and all of that. I recognize pornography is in the eyes of the beholder, so rock on. All we were trying to do is point out, be careful. It's a door that when you open it is wrecking people's lives.
No, there is.
And, I would equate it to alcohol or pot or heroin or whatever else is out there that is somewhat addictive. Look, if you can do it and it doesn't hurt anything, rock on. It's on you. It's not going to affect us one bit. But I can tell you there was dramatic pushback from our editors and from everybody else, and some of it was legitimate in the early drafts and all that. I'm just glad that you got to hear from us. Here's what we feel about it. It's incredibly corrosive in many relationships that we've come across. Incredibly addictive, terribly addictive. It's something that for whatever reason, I think much like crack, people chase it. They get something out of the first doses of it that's positive, even if it's mellow, and they chase it to more and more extremes. And look, there's a reason why every fire department in the nation has to have a you can't view pornography at work rule. Right. And that isn't because that rule wouldn't be there if it was some benign thing. It's because it's compelling. We like it. It appeals to us. It appeals to me. We're not sitting here as these angels saying right. All this stuff doesn't appeal. So I was very glad that I was real happy that we persisted and stayed in and got the bulk of that through the editing process. And our editor, Penwell, to their credit, they took some risks in some of what they allowed to be published in there. Unbeknownst to us, pornography industry has a tremendously large budget for legal action.
Oh wow!
And they pursue that legal action with impunity versus us,
right?
And
right in the book.
whatever our legal budget is, it's
right.
Not large. So,
no, I'm very glad that you guys stuck to your guns on that. Yes, absolutely. And I just can't imagine the expectation put on relationships growing up with the proliferation that it exists that didn't exist when I was a teenager. You know what I'm saying? It's just, people call me old fogey or whatever, but it's just, I can't imagine the expectation that's put on young women. And Matt Stanley asks, what is the book called? It is called The Challenges of the Firefighter Marriage. Let me get it up there. Mike and Anne Gagliano. I'll say it right, I promise you guys.
Hey, we'll show it to you too, Matt. We have them. And if you want one, give us the email. Shoot us your email. We'll give you ours, and we'll send you a signed copy of it for the same price Penwell charges.
There you go.
How's that for a deal?
Deal.
Here's the thing. I recognize that everybody does things a little bit differently in life, and believe me, when you sit out in our culture to write a marriage book or a relationship book, believe me, there's a thousand different variations on that, and we're not interested in that conversation. However your relationship works, whatever it is, you deal with those things. What we tried to do was talk about the principles in pretty much any relationship where fire and home intersect, the fire department and home, where that intersects. That's what we tried to address, and not what your specifics are. I mean, one of my friends has, he has a buddy who he's married to two gals at the same time. They live in the same house. They sleep in the same bed. Once again, Dominus Omen, bless you, brother. Rock on. Hope that works out for you. We didn't deal with those specifics. We dealt from our own experiences. What has made for us wonderful fire service career. Couldn't have been more blessed in my fire service career, and blessed to keep doing it. And 33, 34 plus years now of marriage that has been wavy at times,
sure,
like everybody. Some goods and some bads, but I can tell you from top to bottom that we've had a blast, and we're having a blast now.
That's awesome.
That's what you get to read about.
Awesome. So, Anne, your favorite part?
I would say the chapter that seems to resonate the most with everyone we speak to, every speaking engagement, and even to non-firefighter couples, was probably the concept of re-entry time. That one seems to really strike a nerve and help people, because that's actually the first of the conversations I recommend that you have. And the reason for that one being first is because it's kind of the first lesson I learned, and also it set the tone for the whole day of coming back together from being apart. And it used to just really go awry for us as a couple. He'd come in the door sometimes after 2 days of being away. And back in the 90s when he started, we didn't have cell phones.
The olden days, no cell phone. And he actually worked in the city. We live outside the city, so it was long distance for me to call him. And so we never spoke. We would sometimes go 48 hours without speaking. And so when he'd come in the door, for us, it was in the morning because he worked a 24-hour shift. I would just pounce on him and how to go, what are you doing? And start telling him all the things that happened, and ask him all the questions of, that I wanted to ask, trying to reconnect with him emotionally from being separated. And he would stand there bleary-eyed and just kind of grunt an answer or two, and then I would be offended, and next thing you know, we were fighting, and I was offended, he was irritated, and that would set the tone for his break, for like a 2-day break, and it would take us that whole time to get over that awkward re-entry time. And so that's probably the concept that resonates the most, it seems to, and how that goes awry, how we figured it out. I learned basically to not pounce on him the minute he walks in the door and expect, this deep, long conversation, which is what I want.
And starving for after the 48 hours too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I learned to just let that go, and to just welcome him home, let him have re-entry time, which is a break, a gap, a chance to decompress, to shift gears. And then later in the day, he was so grateful for that later in the day, after he's rested or whatever he needs to do to help him shift gears, then he could give me what I needed, which was the long, in-depth conversation, so that we could reconnect emotionally. And that concept seems to really resonate. So I'm really proud of that one because it saved, I hope it's helping couples not come back together and be mad at each other because we want that transition to be smooth. And then my favorite just piece of the book is the very last chapter. It's called Soulmate versus Soulmate, Soul versus Soulmate. I just love that because I don't know, it's kind of an odd little piece. I don't know if it fits, how well it fits in the book, but it's just almost like a little bit of poetry and what we're talking about, a passionate love affair, not just being roommates, but actually being soulmates that really connect on a personal level. And I really like that piece. I read it over and over again because it kind of says to me what marriage is all about, really just being each other's very best friend and very passionately in love with each other. And so that's kind of my favorite little piece. But the reentry time concept is probably my favorite concept.
Well, and the thing I hope you heard there, because it's what we tried to weave into the entire book, with the reentry time piece, if you heard what she said, reentry time is about giving the individual at the door a chance to segue back from, in my case, the rock and roll world of the firehouse to home, safe place, cool place, chill place. But they are different worlds, man.
Oh, yeah.
The difference between night and day. But if you heard what Anne described she described from the spouse's perspective, it's not that I'm trying to get in your grill. It's not that I'm trying to, as I used to call it, the assault, It's not the assault at the door. I miss you. I love you. I want to connect with you. I have really cool things to tell you about the kids or about my own job or whatever. And for firefighters, how awesome is that? There's a human being in this world that loves you so much and cares about you so much that they want to share life with you. And so when you view it from that perspective, for the spouse, it's just recognize, difficult world that we're traveling in, a lot of strange things that we see in that. For the firefighter coming back in, recognize the intent of your spouse and that they're wanting to connect, and because everything's reciprocal, firefighters, your spouse gives you the gift of reentry time, you should give them the same thing when they return from their job at the ER unit or at the bank or teaching school or whatever it is that your spouse does. Give them a gap, allow them that chance to segue back in. And or for those of you who stay at home, give them a break from the kids who they've been raising all day while you've been saving lives or gowning up and not saving lives, as the case may be, whatever.
Absolutely. When you guys do the class, is it the same type of reaction? Is there a favorite part that's different than that, or is it the same reactions basically? Did the crowd interaction change it at all?
Well, for the class, we don't do, of course, the whole book for the class. For the class, we try to narrow it down to danger, what danger does to the body. I kind of feel like I almost have to remind the spouses that this is not a desk job, because it's real easy for a spouse to kind of check out from what their firefighter does because we're not there at the firehouse, or part of it's we don't want to know what they're doing because it scares us. So I kind of remind them, not a desk job, danger, trauma, what danger and trauma does to your firefighter, what it does to a human being, the toll, the physical toll, the emotional toll. And then I go into how do we deal with that? And then I just do pretty much the 5 conversations.
Okay.
The reentry, you can look at that in the book, but the 5 conversations, and then we kind of just end it from there. If it's a longer class, we go into a little bit more.
Sure.
But those 5 conversations really seem to resonate with the firefighters, and they like it. And it's an easy thing to remember, 5 conversations, because we can't fix everything, every configuration. Sometimes it's female firefighters. We try to keep it somewhat gender neutral because there's a lot of female firefighters. So we keep it concept centered with those 5 conversations. And those 5 conversations kind of cover all the different aspects of firefighting and family.
Or they at least open the door.
Yeah.
I think she did a brilliant job. When we were first starting this, it was so big. It's like, man, are we going to be able to do this in a way that, doesn't have to be a 2-day seminar, which we didn't want.
Right.
I thought she just did a brilliant job of, it's almost kind of like the 10 Commandments in the Bible. If you do these 10, stuff's going to be working out okay for you. You know, you can
got a
deal
shot.
with most stuff. But do these 5 are the 5 conversations are a real nice entry point into the key things that if you at least get this stuff sorted out, in the midst of sorting this out, some of the other smaller things are going to get taken care of. Or if you're only dealing with small things, life's good.
Life is
right?
good. Yes, I love that.
These main 5, though, these are the ones that really, boy, when you get down to nuts and bolts, these are the things that are jamming you up, and that, you know, it's why there's a difference. It's why there's not recognizing that things are wrong.
The one that like out of the 5 essential conversations, the number 4, the fix it mentality. Like I said, it was like a gut punch when I read that chapter, because that is, of course, you touch on it in the book. People call 911 and we go and we help and we fix. That's what we do as firefighters. And so that's men in general, but firefighters especially. So we are constantly trying to fix. And my wife, I cannot tell you how many times she has told me, I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And so I loved conversation number 4, the fix it mentality. And how often do you guys go ahead?
I don't know if you know or not, but we did a calendar with Paul Combs. There's the cartoon for the fix it mentality.
I can fix all of them. Yes. Like I said, it's hard to look in the mirror sometimes because that's me, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I got to work on that. So,
yeah. Well, but now here's the cool thing. When you read that, it resonated, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And because it's very typical of our breed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it that we're required to do every day we go to work? People call us with their worst day, and we have to bring some semblance of order to that day and try to find ways that don't follow any template. There's just no A, B, C, D, you know. We have to find a way to fix it. And then when you segue back into home life with that chalkboard attitude of, well, you know, hey, bada bing, bada boom, bam, 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 do this, man, it's a crash. Yeah.
Not what I wanted.
Right. No, I love that one. I also loved how deeply honest the stories are too. Like one of the ones I remember is Mike got a chance to go on the F-16 fighter jet, and you broke down that whole story and said how Anne did not want you to, and you actually told the guys you weren't going to, and you how all the heck you took from the guys there. And so, but anyway, I just love the realness of the genuineness of the stories that resonates with me when in that story. And then, of course, conversation.
I couldn't write the names that they called me at work.
I believe it.
Yeah, we definitely had to tone down the names that I was called for even considering not taking an F-16 flight.
Right. I can imagine. I can only imagine what the guys would say to me. And then probably my favorite essential conversation of all was the keep for your first family first. And that chapter is if you wrote nothing but that one chapter and it was a pamphlet, I think that would make such a difference in the fire service. Just that one essential conversation. So, So if you get a chance, of course, Challenges of the Firefighter Marriage, Mike and Anne Gagliano. I will get it right, I promise. And,
hey, buddy, my good friends who I've known for a long time still mess it up. So
okay.
Don't sweat it.
That's one of my fears, is just messing up people's names when I'm speaking. So, and then it goes into living with a firefighter. And I think that this book, even like if you're not married to a firefighter, but like in the family, it would help you deal with them. You know what I'm saying? Just understanding what they're facing and when all their schedule and mood, you know, everything that would benefit a spouse, especially, it benefits the extended family. So if anybody out there has a firefighter in their life, and you want, like, if you're a mother of a firefighter or, you know, brother, you can really gain a lot of insight into what they face and how the challenges that they face. So
it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of my, I guess you'd say, wisdom or ideas or insights, some of them stem from other family members not understanding him and getting a little frustrated with why he doesn't come to every single family
right.
event. And you know, well, so he worked 24 hours, he gets to sleep all night, doesn't he? You know, right. I wish I got paid to sleep at night. Or some of my, yeah, that was a good point you made, that some of the things I say aren't necessarily to firefighter couples, because we do get it. It's true, like you said, reminds maybe those who don't understand this world, hey, there's a reason that this guy's tired. He's not this is a different job. So that's a really good point that you made.
That's awesome. Now, how there's been no conferences going on, obviously, with the craziness and the pandemic and everything going on. Pacific Northwest up there where you guys are at. How has it been affecting you guys? Have you guys done any? How's it affected you guys up there?
It's a bummer. They really, FDIC is our favorite thing, and
Right.
so to lose that, real disappointment. That's a shot in the arm for us, and to not go, you kind of lose that spark for the year. We were going to be, our calendar was going to be at FDIC. It's a limited time 2020
Oh,
calendar,
no doubt, yeah.
and that was to be featured at FDIC. So there you go. That's done. That was because we worked really hard on that calendar.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes.
So that was disappointing. We've done a few things like this, which is nice. And of course, we know a lot of folks have it really bad right now. So we're not, don't want to complain.
Sure.
But it's been a bummer because
No.
we love traveling. We love our gigs, and we've had to postpone a lot of them. So
No, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the cool things that we built that we ended up just by accident, to be honest, but it's now my favorite thing to do. Departments have been hiring us to come and do a day of training, and we'll do fire stuff. I'll do fire stuff during the day with the firefighters, and so we'll do This House Rocks and talk about making a great firehouse. We'll do that in the morning. We'll have lunch together. And in the afternoon, we'll do Go No Go. We'll talk about the fire ground, making quick decisions at fires, and how you can learn to get fast and confident and relaxed at fires. And then we send them home. They go get a meal. They go get the kids off to the sitter, and they bring the spouses back. And then Anne and I do the firefighter marriage thing in the evening for a couple hours. And so it's such a fun day because it's the three main things that matter to everybody. It's firehouse, fire ground, home. And there's nothing better than having a group of firefighters with their spouses in the class, having just talked fire and firehouse all day. So they're in that mode. And then come in, and then with coffee and desserts or whatever the hosting agency does, sit down with the most important person in their life.
Right.
And talk about things like first family first and those types of things. The best moment in class, the very best moments, happens every class. The best moment is when you start to talk about, or we'll say something like, whatever else you think is true about the fire department, the single best thing you got going for you is that person sitting right next to you. That's the best thing you have in your life, including your kids, including the great fire company that you work with, including your best mate at the firehouse, including, fill in the gaps. The very best thing you have is that person sitting right next to you. It is awesome to watch the dynamics between the couples when these walls start to break down a little bit, and they start linking arms. They start holding each other's hands. They start looking at each other. It's like, man, that moment right there is worth the bloody plane flight to get to come see you, man. It's worth everything for that moment right there. It's what we prayed about and we hoped would be true when we took this effort on. And we're just hopeful that we're hopeful it persists. It's really tough to do it through a computer screen.
Oh, I can only imagine losing the connection. Yeah, that's just so rough. I've watched a few webinars, and it's not the same as interacting with the people in the audience and having that interaction. It's just the information's there, the connection is not, the atmosphere is not, and I know you guys know, I'm preaching to the choir as far as that goes. But, and then we've already touched on this a little bit, talking about the favorite parts, but you guys did not shy away from hard issues on this book at all. Talking about sex and pornography, and those two chapters there about sex and marriage and pornography versus marriage, and heavy hitting. I mean, it is no punches pulled, and so that's the other part of the book that's just amazing. Is it's genuine and no punches pulled, and I think so relevant to the fire service. I think that married couples would benefit from the book, even if they weren't fire related, but especially because of the fire centric focus of the book. It's so helpful there. Sorry.
Well, again, I won't spend a lot of time here because I want to be respectful of the process. But the sex chapters were longer.
We actually had 4 sex chapters.
And in the editing process, they said, this is a marriage book, not a sex book. And our reply back is, if you don't think sex is a significant part of a healthy relationship, go read somebody else's book.
Right.
Because it is. It's a very healthy part, and it's also where things go sideways. And again, dovetailing back to why we felt the pornography chapter was so important. In the sex chapter, in a respectful way, we talk about the positive nature of sex and what it brings and the scientific stuff and all of that. The pornography chapter is everything that's good about sex flipped on its end, flipped over and twisted and distorted. And I could give you incident after incident after incident of how it goes sideways. But the bottom line is, it's something that is not your chosen spouse. It's people that probably look better than you and I. So the expectations change. They're doing things that no normal human being does, and all of a sudden you think that's normal. And one last thing for firefighters, I'm going to preach at you. I don't want to. However,
bring it.
You took a commission. You took an oath. You raised your hand to say that you were going to stand in the gap for people, and you were going to go into situations and places that nobody else would go and stand in the gap to save their lives, right? And if you didn't, quit. If you're not willing to do that, you need to quit because you don't understand our mission. I would respectfully submit that when you start to get into this world of pornography and dabble in that world, it is the height of arrogance to think that the majority of the people that are put in the position where they have to do that financially or whatever it is, it's the height of arrogance to think that they're doing that because they want to, because you're so awesome, and they want to be used like that. I would ask you as a respectful human being, and the example that I used in the book, I don't think any of us, when we look at let me just use daughters, when we look at our daughters, I don't think any of us, when we look at those girls, would desire that would be the course that their life would have to take, right?
No, you're 100%. 100%.
Well, I'm telling you what, man, every single instance of pornography that you're getting on to look, pay for, and perpetuate, every single one of those is a son or daughter of somebody, and maybe they had crappy parents, not like you, but they deserve better. I would just ask you respectfully, I'm not preaching at you, I would respectfully ask you, just consider that in light of the mission that you have to stand in the gap. I believe I already said, if I didn't, let me just say again, I like that stuff too. I like it. There is nothing more compelling than naked females, nothing in the world. I get it. With everything that's in me, gang, I get it. I'm asking you to think about, number one, the mission that you took to stand in the gap, and number two, you took an oath, however you did it, us on our knees before God, we took an oath to love and cherish each other. If you're going to go down that road, at least at a minimum, go down it together. Don't do it in secrecy and in privacy. If that's something that works for you and it's not damaging, you should be able to do it together. If you have to do it off in private with a private credit card or with whatever else, obviously that's not a part of what a good marital bond is. I got in trouble. I haven't said it again. I said it one time at a conference we did like three or four ago. I don't remember. But I don't even, gang, unless it's the only choice, I don't even go into Hooters. And I don't want it to sound like we're some Pollyanna people. We're not. We're not. But the story that I told, and I guess you think it's a firefighting audience, but there's spouses in there too. I said I don't go into Hooters out of respect for my wife. And to be candid, I don't want her going into a restaurant entitled or named Cox, right? I don't with guys walking around in Speedos or whatever, serving up, the chicken wings or whatever. And that landed okay with the audience, I guess.
Audience,
Right.
they all howled at that.
Okay.
But do you get the perspective?
Oh yeah.
If you put yourself in the shoes of the other individual in the relationship and look out for them, what they're thinking, you have a much better chance of navigating the real challenges that are going to come your way with, the challenges with your kids and the challenges with paying the bills and illness. I mean, right now we're in the middle of illness, and the bottom line with relationships and with you as an individual, the reality of your life is wherever you go, there you are. Whether the situation is good, whether the situation is neutral or bad, you bring your stuff into it. And a lot of the people right now who are in the middle of COVID and having to be together a lot, all of a sudden are realizing, oh, here we are.
Here we are.
Yes, yeah.
No, there's a lot of, the internet is full of the memes of the week 6 of Ready to Kill My Spouse,
Yeah.
And that's one good thing about the firefighters. You get the break. They get to go away for 24 hours, and as long as it's the healthy break, Now then, 5 questions for firefighters. I've been doing this on the scrap for the last 5 or so. I was always just asking people what's the number one issue facing the fire service, but that seemed to almost be like a negative question. So I tried to make it more positive, and I have the 5 questions for firefighters. Now, Anne, you're the first time that the spouse has got to answer these questions. So, of course, you're so plugged in that you're gonna. But the question number 1: what is the number one issue facing the modern fire service? Whoever wants to go first.
Number one issue. I would say, I'm glad that this is becoming an issue, or at least something recognized. Is focusing a little bit more. Or it seems to be a hot topic. A little bit of the mental health. That's something that isn't shied away from anymore, and I'm glad. I'm honored. I think our book has helped with that. My columns helped a little bit with that, because when I started this, there was really nothing else out there on marriage, and I'm glad that mental health is starting to include the marriage, talking about marriage, because if you're not healthy at home, I do think it impacts your professional life. So I think people are starting to recognize that that is an issue, not be afraid of it, but also at the same time, don't go overboard that everything's PTSD, because that's not true.
Right.
PTSD is very serious, and it's not that as common as people are trying to make it or take advantage of.
Sure.
Or to go too far the other way and become these bubble wrapped snowflakes that can't handle it. That's not true either. But I think that's a good issue. Of course, COVID has changed everything. I'm hoping it'll kind of go back a little bit, back to normal soon. But that's just an issue that that's kind of in my realm. So
Sure.
That's probably an issue that I think is good, bad, find the middle ground, address it, not be afraid of it, not be afraid of a little bit of counseling if things are going out of hand, getting out of hand. But yeah,
No.
mental health.
I like it. Mike?
Boy, there's a lot to talk about there. If I narrowed it down to the one that I would probably want to talk about the most, it's just that we're allowing ourselves to be spread too thin. Too many priorities, way too many priorities. And this is I suppose, a comment to leadership, but those of you that are listening now that aren't in leadership, you're going to be sooner than you could ever imagine. You're going to be. Yeah, there we go.
Hey, Peppa. Sorry.
That's awesome.
Peppa.
Get some.
Sorry, my wife actually rescued a stray. You can see her.
No, that's awesome, man. That's real life right there. That's awesome.
Peppa, come here, girl. Come here.
She's barking at bad leadership.
There she is. As soon as she heard that one, she let us know. All right, I'm sorry. Peppa.
Hey, go ahead, bro. Go ahead and situate it. We'll hang out.
I'm going to see what she's barking. Wait 1 second.
Someone at the
That's
door.
so awesome, man.
Kept your sweats on.
The only thing better would be the kid come through with a crap diaper or something. Daddy, I crap my pants. That is awesome. Yeah.
Yay.
And
Mr.
we're
Fix
back.
It.
Maybe.
Mr. Fix It.
We'll see. All right, so maybe.
Oh, wow, you got 3 dogs.
Oh, well, yeah. Yes, 3 big dogs. And she's going to let me know she does not want to be in the kennel. So, all right, we'll try and... this is real life.
Real life, baby.
And
Yeah. So let me say that I'll tell you the thing that is bothersome.
I'm gonna go let her out of that. 1 second.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Good. Awesome, man. I'm glad it wasn't us.
You good, okay? We'll see if she will cooperate. Peppa. All right.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, I'm gonna sit here and pet her.
Hey, man, people will like that part of the show more than they like what we said, dude.
All right, go ahead, Mike. I promise that she will interrupt you on repeat here.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. You want to put her outside? Or?
I might have to here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be right back. Last attempt.
You can just edit this out, right?
Yes. Come on, girl. Come on.
Awesome. And then he's chagrined about it is the best part. We could do a tap dance. He doesn't edit it out. Now a word from our sponsors. Awesome if this is live. I think it is live.
Is it?
Yeah. Hey, bro, is this going out live?
It is live. Everybody's watching me put my dogs out.
Oh,
That is
So-
awesome.
Most people watch it on the when it's not live, but yes, they get to watch all that
Wow,
happen
that's
live.
perfect, man. See, that's real family life right there. The kids acting up, trying to be a professional. And
Yeah, she definitely was in charge there for a minute. So we're number one issue facing spreading thin out to leadership. Before we
All
were
right,
interrupted.
yeah, so when you're spread thin, that's kind of what it looks like. What you just saw right there. You're trying to navigate a computer, deal with two hosts, have good sound, and in the background there's 5 other things going on, and that's what it looks like. Our leadership is doing that to us, and I think in part, a lot of our leadership now, they've all gone to school and they've gotten these business degrees or whatever the hell else. And we've gotten away from the fact that the reality of why we show up to that firehouse has not changed. It hasn't changed a bit. We have other things that we're responsible for now. The society's changing. I get all that. But at the end of the day, if you lose sight of the fact that you showed up there to be a well-oiled team, to answer that bell when that bell goes off, and to be in good shape to do it, you don't understand our mission. If you've lost sight of that, and a lot of our leadership has, it's great that there's a community event. I love getting out and hanging with the kids. That's fantastic. I know that buildings have to be inspected. I know that we've got 6 or 8 or 10 different certifications we've got to get. We got to go take pictures for the annual, and we got to show up for the mayor's thing down the street, because I understand that there are things that are going to pop up. But we have moved away from the importance of being physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to answer that bell. And part of that, I had this conversation with my leadership a lot. I don't even have time to mentor my team anymore. Good God, when is there a time anymore to just spend an hour with each of my individual members in the office like I've done my whole career, and just sit down and say, how are things going for you? And what can we do better? And what am I screwing up? We're behind the doors now, and all the ranking stuff goes out the door. It's now it's Mike and Rick or Mike and Jason. We're just talking like people.
Right.
What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Where am I screwing up? Where am I violating my values? The more check boxes we have to check, the less time we have to do those very core things that make a good, solid fire company an integrated unit. And
Nice.
I don't care that we're doing a bunch of COVID and wearing gowns and going to 80% aid runs or whatever. The bottom line is we're a fire department, and we are going to go to fires. And as long as that's still part of what we do, that takes a lot of preparation, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to make sure that we do it in the right way. And some of the answers for some fire departments is, well, we're just going to train all day. That's not the answer either. If you train all day, every day, the guys are going to be exhausted.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be exhausted and they're going to burn out on it. So I'll tell you, that's what I see as the very biggest issue. We can only wear so many hats, both personally as an individual. You have a choice. You can do 20 things crappy, or you can do 5 or 6 things to the standard that you
Yes.
want. And at
Love that.
some point, something has to come off the plate, or the plate just, it splits, or things just fall off. That'd be a short answer.
That's the short answer. Preach it. That's awesome. Okay, so number 2 is the positive side of it. What is the thing you are most excited about for the future of firefighting?
Can we go
Yeah,
first?
okay.
Oh, yeah, I'll go first. You think about it.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll tell you what I've been really excited about and motivated about lately. I love the fact that there are so many young voices in the fire service that are speaking up and saying, this is what we believe. And I've always felt like there's always been a good balance of that in my career, where you have the older, more seasoned firefighters who have been to the fires and know the stuff and have the scars, talking about what we've done, what has worked, how, the importance of our history, the importance of the mission, and trying to keep us from going off the rails. But I also love the fact, and the internet has allowed this to happen now. A lot of things have, popped up where we can have younger voices are keeping us in tune to the intent of the mission and the importance of being prepared for the job and trained for the job.
Nice.
Now there are some hazards there, and I could have used it as in Canada, I could have used it as the scary thing that's going on. A lot of folks right now, 5, 10, 15-year firefighters are out there talking like they've, got 35 years on the job and have been to a ton of fires, when most of them have been to 5 or 6 really good fires.
That's right.
But they're speaking like they have this breadth of experience without the humility to recognize that they don't know it all yet. And trust me, it's about the 5, 10, 15-year mark where all this stuff starts to happen. And somewhere in there, you get hit with the sledgehammer to the face saying you do not know it all. 33 years on the job, my last night in the firehouse, I was still kept awake by the things that I don't know about the job and the things that I had forgotten and that I should know. That realization came to me about 10 years on the job. I was pretty spry at 5 years, like I got it all figured out.
Right on.
I'd been to a good stretch of fires because we had an arsonist in town, so been up on the roof opening up holes. That was with a really good fire company, a good fire officer. And then wherever it was in that 8, 9, 10-year mark, all of a sudden you get smashed in the face. A difficult one. And you realize you don't know it all. But the positive of that, gosh, I love the voices that are out there and the mechanism to just get insight and tips and techniques from some of the brightest, best, most, energetic firefighters in the fire service. And I think it's incredibly healthy for us. And I would encourage you that are listening. You probably feel like you don't have something to contribute because it's already been said. Why do we need another class on opening up roofs? Why do we need another saw class? Why do we need another handline class or a search class? Why do we have to talk anymore about leadership or about those various things? The reason we do is because we haven't seen it yet through your eyes. And I want to see it through your eyes. I want to hear your take on it. And some of what you believe right now will fall by the wayside, but you probably have or have seen a couple things that we need in our toolbox that nobody else has thought about in the way you have. And I would just encourage you, don't be beat down. Don't be pushed around by people that will say, who are you, kid? You want to go to a good forcible entry class, go see Bobby Morris. And I would agree. But, I also want to go see, what the guys in Oregon are doing, what Cody and his guys are doing. I want to see what Sam Hiddle's doing.
Oh yeah.
I want to hear about all these different insights, and I think it's the lifeblood of the fire service, and I love it. I think it's awesome.
That is.
And if you're a jerk about it, we'll just not pay any attention to you.
Fair enough. I like it. Anne?
I guess I would just be really current. I'm really liking the respect and the appreciation for our first responders that's coming out of the emergency. We noticed that at 9/11, all of a sudden we realized our first responders are on the front lines of life and death for us in this country, and to not take that for granted. And I hope it lasts. It's kind of like Christmas. You hope that spirit lasts all year long. I know somebody somewhere will do one thing wrong and then back to firefighters aren't as appreciated. But I think it's staying. I think it's somewhat lasting. People are starting to get what you do for a living, what our firefighters do. They'll never fully get it until you actually are one or live with one.
Right.
But I hope it lasts, that appreciation for the fire department and what you do. And I love to see it in our culture. I love to see that appreciation. So, and I hope you firefighters feel that. And I hope you know it is true. You are awesome and you do stand in the gaps. So
That's well said. Question 3. Best rank or position to have in the fire service? Mike from living it and Anne, of course. Which one did you enjoy him in the most?
I guess I'll go first. I loved them all, but the one I really enjoyed the most was him being captain. When he finally got his gold card from being training captain was tough because he had to be there during the day.
Gotcha.
But once he went through that 2-year day job, then he got a golden ticket and he got to pick his assignment for the first time. He really got to pick, and he picked his favorite firehouse in the city, and he got to be the captain.
That's
Of
awesome.
his favorite. He got to be the boss. He was the captain for the entire station, all 4 shifts. He got to set the tone. He got to pick the people he wanted to work for him.
Some, not all.
He got to have influence. He got
Right.
to influence somewhat. And I got to watch him really come into his element as a leader. And he's the best kind of leader, in my opinion. He's a servant leader. Worked harder than he ever worked before
Right.
as the firefighter. The really good captains really work hard. He worked his tail off.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was on and off shift, he was doing stuff and behind the scenes. But I was so proud of him, and I enjoyed it so much because he was having a ball with it, and really happy with it, even though it was stressful, lot more work. I really enjoyed it because I got to watch him really reach his full potential and enjoy it. And I think he enjoyed his last stint as a captain. In my opinion, he seemed to enjoy it most of all. So that's my favorite, captain.
Captain?
Yeah. And still fighting fires, which I don't like that part, but
Right. But
got
that
to
is
still be
huge
fighting
bonus.
fires and be the boss too at the same time. So.
Mike?
Good parts about every position that I've been in, and she described it pretty well. I think captain was probably overall the best part, but let me say this to be different. You should be having a blast wherever you are, and I think one of the biggest, if I had to put a real finger on why we're having some leadership challenges at the top, I think part of it is that a lot of the people who are going through the system did not enjoy where they were along the way, and they kept waiting to be happy. They kept waiting to be fulfilled. I had a blast as a firefighter, man. And I had a blast on the engine and a blast on the truck. I did. I had a good time. I had a great time as a lieutenant. It was scary. This big, steep learning curve. Wasn't like we had a robust officer training program.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh, you passed the test. Rock on. Hope it works out.
Here's a badge. Go get it.
Yeah. And then, of course, going to admin. I did the admin gig at training division. I took the training division hit so I could kind of stay connected to the streets, but completely, man, now you're down in an office and totally different. But I'll tell you, man, even though the commute was rough on me, I had a great time there. And you talk about meaningful, compelling work and driving the training agenda for the Seattle Fire Department, 1,000 members driving that program, gratifying and incredible. And ending up as a captain of a great rock and roll firehouse. Fantastic. I think one of my favorite parts of it, I love working with the leadership team there and trying to make it a leadership team. Not I'm the big, swinging captain and you do what I say, but we're a leadership team. If we're going to make this thing awesome across 4 platoons with an engine and a truck and a medic unit, we're going to have to, as a leadership team, be on each other's side and take care of these guys together. The troops aren't there for you. They're not. They're not cogs in your little machine that you learned about in your Business 101 class or, your firefighter leadership class. They're not cogs for that program. You promoted so that you could help those firefighters live their dreams in the fire service and be prepared when that bell hit to deliver epic service. If you lose sight of that point, You ought to turn the bars and the bugles in, because you've lost what fire service leadership should be about. And when I was doing that right way, enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a blast. It's the coolest thing in the world to watch firefighters live their dreams. And when you roll out of the firehouse, I can't tell you how gratifying it is, and we heard it a lot. So gratifying to have the chief officers on the scene, the senior people, the other members say, "Man, I'm glad you guys were here." Best day in the world.
Awesome. Hey, preach it. That's awesome. I like it when he gets fired up, man. It's enjoyable. Best advice you've ever received?
Well, it's kind of a little parable. I think it originally comes from the Bible, but there's all different. Confucius say all these. It's a little saying that I really like, and it says, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And so I just love that. Unforgiveness in you is like you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
I do like that.
So I just apply that. And the reason I like that, unforgiveness works at home, it works with other family, it works at work. If there's a person in your life that you're just so angry with all the time, all you're doing really is hurting yourself. It doesn't hurt them when you're angry at them. So I just recommend that, forgiveness, on the other hand, helps you to let go of that, especially in marriage or with that coworker that you just can't stand. And forgiveness doesn't mean you're saying what they did is okay. It just means you're letting go of that anger, because that anger is like poison.
Letting go of that poison, yeah.
Yeah, just let go of the poison, because all you're doing is poisoning yourself. So I don't know. That's just something I always remember when I start to get really mad at somebody. It's like, okay, you're poisoning yourself. Let it go. Let it go.
All right. Mike?
I have a lot of good advice through the years.
Sure.
I guess the one that kind of comes to mind the most is along the lines of don't take yourself so seriously. Nobody else does.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, just along those lines. Let me if I put it into context of the job, take the job seriously. Take the mission seriously. Take your preparation seriously. Just don't take yourself too seriously. Don't get so wrapped up in your bit and who you are and all this type of stuff. I would encourage you that if you're doing the right things, if you're prepping well, if you're moving to a standard of excellence, you're going to do a good job on the fire ground, at least as good a job as you can do in this thing that's so chaotic. And if you're looking out for the troops, if you're looking out for the guy, the gal next to you on your right and on your left, and determining to deliver good service, you're going to have a blast. You're going to have a great career. If you get wrapped up in your image and your ego and your bluster and your blow, everybody's going to hate to be around you, and you're not going to be as good as you could be. And ballpark.
I love it. Again, final one. It's heavy fire and tenable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES? And I know you started on a truck, but I still want to hear your answer. So,
I don't know if there's an answer to that for me. I love the thing. I'll tell you what I miss about the job. There's a lot about being in a big city department that I don't miss. The politics and all the different stuff. I don't miss that at all. Boy, I miss being in the firehouse with the guys, and I miss fires a lot. I miss that. I'm gonna miss that till the day I die. I loved being on the nozzle. How kick-ass is that? To knock that sucker down. That was I'll tell you, if I had to choose, though, I enjoyed truck work more only because it was non-linear. It was so different. Every there was no. I know they're trying to. My department is trying to script everything now. Put A, B, C's and lists and all this stuff. It doesn't work. There's some broad ranges, especially in truck work, and I loved the complexity of showing up and, depending upon the play the engine called, because they call a play, they do something, we have to respond to that. Making truck priorities fit to the individual things that are going on at that fire. Gosh, I found it so invigorating and stimulating, and trying to teach it to the guys and get them to think outside the box. It's not just put ladder here, bust window here, do this here. It's what are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
with this structure, this structure is different than the last one we just did, where that worked, but it won't work here. And navigating that. So if you put a gun to my head, I would probably say the vent to enter search, just because I enjoyed truck work a bit more. But man, I'm not one of these truck only guys. I had a blast on the engine. We had a great time, and I enjoyed them both.
I tried to make the question.
You know what Anne's answer will be?
What's that?
Neither.
Neither.
Neither of them.
Stay outside.
No, I tried to make the question a tough one to answer, like a hard decision. You know what I'm saying? So it's supposed to hopefully put you on the spot. Well, you guys have been. Go ahead.
Hey, here's one thing, just as a final thing on that question, for my truck brethren out there. So long, again, going to mission-centered preparation. As long as you understand in your mind, because I think in a lot of jurisdictions, the truck is viewed as a bit elevated. It's harder to get to the truck, those types of things. I understand all that. It may take a little more training or whatever, but understand this. If you lose sight of the fact on the truck that your sole mission, your primary mission at that event is to support and secure the way for the line to get laid, to put out the fire, you've missed your call. And we've got all kinds of things, search and all the other stuff we do in venting. The majority of what we do is in support of the primary line to get to either extinguish the fire or protect the pathway so that we can get the people out. So I joke with folks in the tactic class all the time. If you want to be a truckie, you have to remember we're there to support the hose. The function that most fits that in our world is kind of, the jock strap. You're supporting the hose. So you're the jock strap for the fire service. As long as you accept that,
I love it.
Life is good, right?
Oh, sorry, that is awesome. You guys have been unbelievably fun guests. Thanks for putting up with my dogs. And
Another season.
Best place to contact you and to get your books and book a class whenever you start doing classes again.
So the best thing to do is you can either email us. Email is MikeYJay@AOL.com. Cue the chuckles that I still have an AOL account. I get grief from the guys
all the time. Okay.
Mikey J, MikeYJay@AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook, and I guess just look up my name there. Those are probably the two primary ways to get a hold of us. Or I'm assuming you can get us through you.
Sure,
just fine.
I'll put it on there.
Love to come teach at your department once the world has, gotten back to normal. If you would like a copy of the book, we have them, or you can get them from Penwell or Amazon. And then we have about 20 of these left.
Oh, wow.
That are signed by Paul and myself. And once we got about 20, and once those are gone, that's all of those they're going to be. You'll still be able to get them from Penwell, I think, for a little while longer. Love to come to your place. We got a bunch of different configurations we could do as far as classes, either just the marriage stuff, or like I said, it'd be fun, a full day of training just to make it worth the costs, to bring us out. But appreciate you having us on. Hey, real quick, good grief, pull that mug back up, dude.
The mug?
Pull your coffee mug back. Look, this boy has got a bladder that won't quit. I'm marveling, man.
One of my guys actually made this for me.
Brother, when you hit my age,
right?
That's my coffee cup, and right now I have to feel like a Russian racehorse. I don't know how you do it.
I'm sure it's coming. But thank you guys for being unbelievably good guests. I've had I don't think I've laughed this hard in a while, and so I'm gonna have you back on at some point, Mike, to talk about This House Rocks, because I am very intrigued by that. I love Firehouse culture and leadership too. So I'm going to lock you in for that in the future sometime. And you've been unbelievably gracious, and I love the book and everything that. So everybody, again, Challenges of the Firefighter Marriage. Find my camera. And thank you guys for coming on the Weekly Scrap, number 35, Firehouse Vigilance. You guys have been awesome. Viewers, thank you. And I'm going to try and get you to come to the Moore Fire Department for that full day of the Firehouse, Fire Ground, and then family. That's gonna be good. So we're gonna make that happen. But thank you guys for everybody watching. I hope the tone stays silent unless it's burning. Stay safe out there. Thank you, Mike and Ann.
God bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.